Intelligence High School Debate.
Hello and welcome to Intelligence High School Debate. I'm your host, Misorang. Youth is not a time in life, it's a state of mind. It is the predominance of courage over timidity, of the appetite for adventure over the love of ease. That was a part of Samuel Ullman's famous poem, Youth. And as the great poet alluded to, one of the greatest privileges of youth is having the courage to face challenges and overcome adversity in pursuit of our dreams. And this week here in the studio, we are joined by some very courageous students for the 6th episode of Intelligence High School Debate. On Intelligence, 32 teams take part in a debating tournament for a chance to compete in the Northeast Asia Debating Championship. In terms of style, we will follow the British parliamentary format, so let's take a closer look at its rules.
This tournament adapts the British parliamentary style. The debate consists of 4 teams of 2 speakers with 2 teams on either side of the case. Each speaker should deliver a 5-minute speech, and teams gain points individually even if on the same side. The first and last minute of each speech is protected from the point of informations.
Teams and sides are chosen by drawing lots, so our students will now randomly select a scroll that has their team position written on it. First up are the students from Sungdeok High School, Jo Soo-bin and Kim Jae-hee. Please randomly select a scroll. The scroll reads Opening Opposition. And next are students Kim Bo-ah and Kim Jae-yeon from Hankuk Academy of Foreign Studies. Please select a scroll. Opening Government, so they'll be going in direct opposition. Continuing on, Seoul Foreign Language High School students Park Soo-bin and Park Soo-won. They have selected closing opposition. And through the process of elimination, that of course means that students So Kyung-un and Chung Yoon-jae from Gimcheon High School will be assuming the position closing government. So let me introduce our teams once again. On opening government, we have students from Hankuk Academy of Foreign Studies.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here and I'll do my best.
And hope you all enjoy the debate.
Okay, and going in direct opposition is the opening opposition. Students from Sungdeok High School.
I'm a little nervous now, but I'll do my best.
Okay.
I'm a little bit nervous now, but I'm gonna try my best.
All right. And the closing teams, the closing government, Gimcheon High School students.
It is my first experience, but I'm going to do my best and I will try to enjoy the debate.
Okay.
Yeah, today, we Gimcheon High School will show our Gimcheon High School's swag. So let's enjoy this debate.
All right, I hope you guys have fun. And the closing oppositions, Seoul Foreign Language High School students.
We're from Seoul Foreign Language High School and we'll do our best.
And it's such an honor to be here.
Drastically, and also it was not really big conference at Bernie because that is the reason why that drives the value of the situations. Not everything to offend this. There are lots of people that help support. Not only aging people, but
Nature has give them one chance to work. Let them cross the world. On the
system needs a lot of money. That doesn't mean that we should provide the money that is provided by. We should just
Time now to introduce our 3 adjudicators. First, we have Professor Joshua Park, who is a member of the Executive Committee of the World Schools Debating Championships. And Professor Prauta Sorasusha from Thammasat University in Thailand. And also author Sandeep Shilani from Hong Kong, the Deputy Chief Adjudicator of the United Asian Debating Championships. And last but not least, we have 50 audience judges right here in the studio, the students from Gangseok High School. Hello and welcome to our show. Now, these students will continue to provide feedback during the debate in the form of green lights. If they agree with the speaker's argument, they will turn their green lights on, but if they don't, they will leave it off. The number of green lights will be reflected in the final results, so please make your decision carefully. All right, enough from me. Let's check out the motion for today's debate.
The size of the average family seems to be getting smaller, but some people still live with and care for their elderly parents. One of their biggest concerns is the financial burden. To ease the problem, there's an increasing call in favor of prioritizing welfare for families living with elderly parents. However, misuse of the benefit is also a serious issue to consider as well. Is this welfare priority going to help form a better society or merely offer the possibility of fraud? This house would prioritize welfare to families who live with elderly parents.
The number of super-aged countries in the world is increasing by the year, and Korea is no stranger to the concept of an aging population. So that begs the question, should governments prioritize welfare to those living with elderly parents? That sounds like the makings of a debate, so let's have it. First, the Prime Minister. Please step forward to the podium.
We are living in a society in which the population of elderlies are vastly increasing and the welfare system cannot follow the pace of it. And it is high time now that we recognize the importance and the following difficulties of families that live with elderly parents and try to help them. So our model in this debate is very simple. We are not going to give welfare to any kind of family living with elderly parents. Rather, we will maintain the current standard of giving family welfare. For instance, for families with lower income, with chronic illnesses, unemployment problems, physical disabilities, etc., all of those which are some kind of difficulty in maintaining family structure. And when a family meets this criteria, among the different types of families, we will prioritize the ones living with elderly parents, and we think that is justified. So having that said, we have three arguments today. Number one, I'm going to talk about the justification of this policy, why families living with elderlies need especially more help from the government. Number two, I'm going to talk about how this can be a good way to solve the problem of the aging society and the status quo. And the third argument about the furthermore benefits would be dealt in our second speech. So first argument, the justification. What are the problems that these families face exclusively? We think that they face big financial problems. Most people do not consider moving a parent or other family members in until he has some sort of health setbacks or crisis. Elderlies are also biologically more vulnerable to chronic illnesses, and that is the reason why family members need to pay hospital bills and medical bills continuously in order to support them. And not only that, most elderlies do not have the power, capacity, nor the chance to work themselves and earn profit. And that is the reason why they cannot earn the profit themselves. But at the same time, living expenses inevitably increase as the family has to provide for food, clothes, and housings for the elderlies. And that is why expenses drastically overcomes their earnings, and that is the reason why that drives the family to financial unstableness at the end of the day. And B, we also think that this requires great effort and time to live with the elderly parents. Even if the elderly parents do not suffer from chronic illnesses right now, you still need to anticipate his future condition based on family history and his personal history. So for example, if your family has a history of some specific kind of cancer or genetic illness, you need to constantly check for it. And if they happen to need things like assisted living and memory care, that requires even more time and effort in order for you to support that family. And all of these difficulties are especially exacerbated because generally at the age of starting to live with your elderly parents, you have your own family to support, such as your children. No, thank you, ma'am. So they need more help than other types of family. That is why it is justified for the government to prioritize them. Then second argument, how this can be a good way to solve the problem of aging society. So the first question we have to ask is, what are the problems of aging societies in the status quo? Obviously, there are financial difficulties leading to economic setbacks in the status quo, illness leading to medical problems, and also the feeling of loneliness and isolation that elderly feels becomes a problem. This even leads to suicide happening. And without families supporting the elderly, the government needs to pay for every single issues and problems that these elderly face. But because of continuous increase of elderly populations, governments lack resources in order to do so. And that is why in the status quo, oftentimes these governments fail to protect the elderly and fulfill their responsibility. Then, how can this policy solve this problem? We think that when you have a family, you not only can support them economically and medically, but also just being there with the elderlies and living together provides a sense of togetherness. And that is the reason why you can this decreases the sense of isolation that elderly feel. And this leads to less necessity of more facilities like senior community centers that the government necessarily has to build in the status quo in order to provide for benefits for the elderly who feel isolated in society. And that is the reason why we can drastically save more resources that is wasted in the status quo in order to provide for elderlies. And we can also at the same time provide more benefits to the elderly parents as they can live with their families and get the support and receive the support that they need in the status quo. And the resources could be also better utilized, which will be dealt in our second speaker. So if you want to live in a society where you can comfortably live with your family in the future, you should vote for opening government. And that is the reason why we are more than proud to propose.
Okay, that was a Prime Minister arguing for the motion that governments should prioritize welfare to those families living with their elderly parents. According to the speaker, elderly members are more susceptible to health problems, some medical problems, but they have lost the ability to generate their own source of income, and that this puts additional financial pressure on the supporting family. So how successful was she in persuading the audience? The number is 30 out of 50, so exactly 60% of our audience have agreed with the Prime Minister. Let's see if the leader of opposition can match that score. Please step up to the podium.
I think the government should not give priority to families who live with elderly parents. If government give priorities only for families who live with elderly parents, it can be seen fair at first, but why isn't government give priorities to orphan or family without earning money? Priorities to orphan and everyone who suffered have a right to receive that aid. It is illogical that government give priorities only for family with elderly parents. It's unfair. And second, welfare is for people who need help. If government aid, every family lives with elderly parents, maybe lots of people who don't need help will take advantage, and the people who need help will remain suffered. We want to help people who really need salvation. Standard of income is needed to recognize if they really need government subsidies or not. And third, it's okay to give priorities. Third, it can also be abused. Because government give priorities for family with elderly parents, lots of people will fake the family. Like after they are given subsidies, they can separate. And they can negotiate beforehand to act as if they all live together. And I think that's not the reason why the nation pays tax. And also, abusing can corrupt the real filial affection. There are a lot of people who live with their elderly parents because they think that's their duty for their parents to grow and take care of them. But if some people criticize because they think that he didn't do that behave with good behave, maybe that people will discouraged to remain his good deed. And I will summarize my argument. First is unfair. People who really need have to receive welfare.
Point of information.
Yeah?
Different help in different status. Isn't it justifiable? Is it a matter of the fairness?
Because not every people, but there are lots of people who need help. Not only aging people, but orphan or family with not earning money. So if government subsidize only for people who live with other parents, maybe other people who are suffered will see it's unfair. Yeah, and I'll summarize it. Yeah.
What you said just before is not true because we already give those money to those older people. We are just saying like we want to switch that money for the family to take care of their parents. What do you think about that?
Pardon?
What I said is we already paid money for those older people in social welfare, And we are just switching that money for the family to take care of those siblings. So what you said, it takes more money, does not make any sense. So that's what I said.
I didn't say it takes more money, but I said it's unfair and income standard is needed. Because that family is not need help because they have money to support their parents and have a lot of advantage. They don't need any aid from government. And I'll summarize my opinion. First, it's unfair. People who really need help to receive welfare. Second, income standard is needed. The people who don't need aid take advantage now. And third, it can be abused. This is my end.
Okay, that was a leader of opposition arguing against the motion, so arguing that governments should not prioritize welfare to those living with their elderly parents. Because according to the speaker, doing so would, among other things, lead to abuse of the welfare system, such as some families falsely claiming that they are living with their elderly parents. So did she do a better job than the Prime Minister? The Prime Minister received 30 out of 50 lights. So let's check how many lights have been switched on for the leader of opposition. Just 7 out of 50. Okay, let's see if the Deputy Prime Minister can continue this winning momentum.
Mr. and Madam Speaker, we find it very helpful that this policy not only motivates people to take their elderly parents and take care of them with their full effort, but also how it can really actually benefit society in terms that it can solve the aging society problems in a very effective way. So before moving on to our last argument about it can contribute to more efficient use of resources, we have a few points of rebuttal to the previous speaker. So firstly, we would like to refute on the point that regarding about the income standard, our Prime Minister has clearly told in her speech that we will absolutely not give this welfare to any family who just simply live with their elderly parents, even if they're rich or whatnot. But we actually did set an income standard that this will be provided within those family and the recipients who already received the welfare system. And secondly, that regarding about the unfairness. Firstly, we have clearly told you how we are going to set this problem in an aging society in which this is a great societal problem and it has a great impact in the economy that the state should actively try to engage and solve the problem. In that sense, we believe that it's very important to prioritize those who live with their elderly parents and try to solve these kinds of aging society problems. And also, secondly, we don't think that prioritizing means that this will be the only exclusive recipient. Absolutely, the orphans or anyone who are under financial burden will be the target and the recipient of the welfare. We don't think that this simply means that we're going to exclude those people from the recipient range. Second point and third point, regarding about the point that there will be, this system will be abused. Firstly, we believe that this is a very illogical argument to simply ban or just go against the motion, because absolutely, we will need better degree of regulation. We will need a better, higher security of this official document, and we will absolutely need to heavily punish those who try to attempt on fraud or abusing the system. And we don't think that that should be the main point of the opposition team. Yes.
So you said that it has to be justified that the family that lives with elderly people have to be prioritized. So what is the justification that they are more urgent than the orphans or disabled people to get welfare?
Firstly, we want to tell you that these families are going to be on one type of families who already receive those welfare systems, who are under the income level or who are disabled or whatnot. And in that sense, we believe that these families are especially important because we have clearly addressed the problem about the aging society, in which how the increasing degree or the proportion of these elderly members will absolutely impact our society in the long run, how it will impact in an economic way or any way in that it will punish the society in the long run. So in that sense, we believe that the government should actively engage and try to improve the welfare system by encouraging these families to take care of their elderly parents and also contribute to the societal economy by giving them priority on these welfare systems. And we believe that that is a very justification that was already given by our Prime Minister. Now, moving on back to my point on the rebuttals, we have the fourth point of rebuttal is that how people will lose the incentive, the good deeds, and all those kind of incentives to take care of their families. Firstly, we see no logic in this point. We rather think that this will encourage people to take care of their elderly parents, and also it will not really make people lose their incentive because they think that they will be somehow acknowledged by the society that their doings of taking care of the elderly parents is a good thing and a moral thing. But secondly, even if that's the case, we think that it's much more beneficial for society to incentivize these people, no matter if it's a fake incentive incentive or whatnot to actually encourage these people to take care of the elder parents and actually do contribute to the society and solve these problems in a gradual way to solve these aging society problems. Now, moving on to our third argument, how this will lead to more efficient use of resources. Firstly, we believe that if this government tries to prioritize these people, absolutely people will try to get motivated to take care of their elderly families, and that absolutely takes away the burdens that the government originally had to take. And that allows more room to distribute the taxation that the government collected from the citizens in a way that supports higher quality of common welfare system, and also it supports and contributes to better allocation of resources according to the government's necessity. And that's the reason why we want to tell you how these money and tax will be used in a more efficient way according to the government's priority and the strategies that the government would like to invest on. And also, it will also improve the common welfare system, such as those like cultural centers given for the elderly or the senior citizen centers or whatnot. And these kind of general improvement in the quality of these welfare system for the elderly will also help those elderly who do not live with their families, and it will generally improve their quality of life at the end of the day. And also for the better allocation of resources, we clearly say because the government can dramatically decrease their housing welfare system by implementing these kind of policies, that will absolutely lead to better allocation of resources such as education or any kind of important, necessary, and imminent problems that the government can hold. For instance, like the opposition team brought up, if the orphan problems or any kind of other problems are important, the government can effectively use the system to distribute their tax money in a more efficient way and allocate it according to their strategic purposes. And for these reasons, we're very proud to propose. Thank you.
Okay, that was the Deputy Prime Minister arguing for the motion and in detailing why government should prioritize welfare to those living with elderly parents. She reiterated the opening government's definition of the motion that priority welfare will be given to those living with their elderly parents, but only if that family's income falls below a particular threshold. So let's see how many of our audience judges agree. 36 out of 50. That puts the total for the opening government at 66 lights out of 100. Not too bad. All right, moving on to the Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Yeah, I think the government doesn't have to prioritize welfare to families who live with elderly parents because that's not always fair. We can guess enough the case where elderly parents do not want to rather live with their offspring, or the family inevitably have to live far from their elderly parents since they can have spatial restrictions caused by their job, parents' age, and so on could exist. In these situations, do the families become not to support their elderly parents? Also, if they don't live with their parents, they are neglecting their parents. So don't they have to receive priorities in providing welfare? The case where the family support their parents very well, though they don't live together, can fully exist. I think prioritizing welfare to families who live with elderly parents is kind of the government's prejudice about that the family should surely live with their elderly parents, and it can only become the sincere filial duty. Like these various examples, there exist several circumstances that they can't live with their elderly parents. So I think the government should consider these situations and avoid to unconditionally prioritize welfare to families who live with elderly parents. At the end.
Okay, you have about more than 2 minutes, 2 minutes and a half left. Would you like to continue or would you like to finish?
Point of information.
Oh, yeah, no.
The opposition team were keep saying about the orphanage problem, but the problem of the orphanage is just limited in that case. But this kind of the problems of elderly parents is the problem of whole Koreans now, and Korea is getting aging and aging. But how can you be certain that that kind of problems are important than the kind of problem of ourselves?
I didn't mention orphan.
I think the government was referring to the comments made by the leader of opposition. If you would like to continue, you may. You have about 2 minutes left, or you may finish. Okay, all right. That was the deputy leader of opposition arguing against the motion. Okay, let's see how many students or how many of our audience judges are in agreement with the deputy leader of opposition. 2 of 50 lights have been switched on. The top half of the debate is now complete, but before we continue on with the closing teams, let's ask our 3 adjudicators for their opinion on the debate so far. First, Professor Joshua Park.
So I'll be commenting on the opening government team first. I thought the Prime Minister had a pretty good setup, although it was phrased a little bit unclearly to the extent that all 3 of the judges, when we were discussing, we all had a moment of, are they actually arguing the wrong side? Going into the Deputy Prime Minister's speech, I thought you had excellent engagement with the Leader of Opposition. So, for example, referring to the Prime Minister's model to rebut what they were saying regarding the fairness issue, how you are actually still keeping all of the benefits for the orphans and so forth. So you're pushing welfare burdens to families instead of the government owning up to their own burdens to care for their most vulnerable people, who you are arguing are the elderly.
So I'll talk a little bit about the opening opposition. First of all, I think a lot of the arguments that you guys did raise were actually very much on point. So the argument about fairness, for example, what about other groups in society that are also needing welfare, or the type of filial exchange we should have? Obviously, one of the things that you guys were missing out was a certain degree of elaboration. And to that extent, what you can always try to do is try and break down the actor. Necessarily, when you are prioritizing something, you're deprioritizing something, and you focus on the deprioritized part.
Yeah, so just a quick overview about what we've heard from both sides. Why aging society? Why is it such a big deal? Because despite the fact that the opening government did establish that there was a difficulty and that aging society and elders were a problem, and they take up resources and are a financial burden to their families and to the government. What actually is fairness? So we talked about like the different allocations of resources and whether that was fair or not, but we didn't really get like a concrete idea of how can we measure what is fair and which side creates the most fairness and in the end is able to take care of these elderly people who are vulnerable and who need our support the best way possible.
Thank you for your comments. We now move on to the second part of our debate, and to start us off is the member of government. Please step up to the podium.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is such an honor to stand here and participate in such a precious debate. Although the opposition team had made such an interesting points, I do not agree with them in some points. And these are the reasons. First of all, they said those kinds of examples of orphanages and others. And our team said we have to care about elderly people more because the number of elderly parents' problem is more than the number of the orphans. There aren't so many orphans in our countries and in other countries, but the problem of elderly people and their parents, lonely parents, is being severe because our country is going to old-aged country, and that is the reason why we say this. And second of all, they kept on saying like it is not fair because there are many other things to consider, but because we all have our parents, and that is the reason why we have to think about this problem more carefully. Now back onto my speech. In 21st century, as the medical treatment and medical technologies are getting better and better, the human life expectancy is also increasing. So what that means is that we are beginning to live longer. Back in 1900s, the human's life expectancy was only about 60s, but these days the human's life expectancy is about 80. That means we have 20 more years, but most people retire at 60s, and that means they have more time left to be at home. Many people may think that living a lot and living more longer is a good thing, but these are the problems that can be created. When people go to a company or they participate in some other kind of social stuffs, they do not feel lonely because they are in some interactions. But when they are about 70s and 80s, and when they're sitting alone with their partners or by themselves, then it may be that they are so lonely that they do not want to that it is very hard for them to live a happy life. So the governments try to solve this problem by giving those kinds of social welfare, and they spend a lot of money on this. But it is not very successful because it does not solve the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that they do not have any, they have two less people, like only their partner or one or two. So they have two less people to talk with and interact with. But giving them money and does not make them to be not lonely. So what government did does not fix all the problems. So that is the reason why we have to. No, thank you, ma'am. So that is the reason why we have to give young people and encourage those people to take care of their old parents. Because if we do, then those people will go to their parents or live with their parents. So those parents will not feel lonely.
Point.
Yeah.
Then how about abusing problem?
What do you mean by abusing?
I think you have to activate that because to live with their elder parents with young people, but how can you solve the abusing problem?
There will be no abusing problem because the parents are going to be protected by their children. So those 30s or 40s people will protect them and they will begin to live more happily. And according to a research paper that's done by National Tax Services, by 2040, 60% of our taxes are going to be used for elderly people. Because the number of elderly Because the number of old people are going to be so great, it will become a disaster. Raise your hand if you want to use 60% of your income for those people you do not know. I bet most of you do not want to. But if we say, in terms of our parents, if you want to give money for your parents, then most of us here will say yes. So what that means is that we should use our money to our parents, not those people who we do not know. So as status quo, many people are busy at making their own living. So that is the reason why people cannot help their parents. They want to help their parents, but they cannot because they are busy at their living. So what I want to say is that we should protect those elderly people by living with us together, and they can solve these problems. And those elderly people will stop to feel lonely, and we should invite those families to our lives, and we should live happily with them. Thank you for listening to my speech.
Okay, that was a member of government arguing for the motion, and in arguing for why government should prioritize welfare to those living with their elderly parents, he argued that it will naturally encourage families to live with their elderly parents and thereby alleviating some of the loneliness felt by the elderly parents. Okay, let's check out the audience response. Let's see how many lights have been switched on. 29 out of 50, so almost 60% of our audience judges agree with the speaker. Now let's see if our member of opposition can match the score. Member of opposition, please step forward to the podium.
Hi, this is the member of opposition. First, I'll be rebutting the government's argument. First of all, the opening government has mentioned that they're going to limit the families that they are not rich and that lack money. But is the government not aware that there are already existing policies that help the people who are poor and they can't support themselves? And second of all, the government has mentioned that elderlies are biologically more vulnerable to get diseases than other young people, but that doesn't mean that prioritizing welfare to families who live with elderly parents can help them not get diseases. Living with family or not living with family doesn't mean that they're healthier or unhealthier. So the opposition side thinks that the fact that elderlies are biologically more vulnerable to get diseases is not an effective argument.
Point of information.
Yes.
I think they were not saying about getting the diseases. They were saying about the curing process. Curing process requires a lot of money. What do you think about it?
Because the curing system needs a lot of money, that doesn't mean that we should provide the money to the families. We should just provide the money to the elderly parents, and they could do it themselves. And also, the closing government has mentioned that life expectancy has risen, which means that they have more time to work and make profits for themselves. So we shouldn't make laws to prioritize welfare to families who live with elderly parents, but we should make policies that encourages the employment of the elderlies rather than having them rely on the families. Also, the government has mentioned that living with families will help the problem of loneliness, but what if the family is just living with the elderly parents to get money and to get profits? What if they're just abusing the they're abusing the elderly parents and not giving attention to them. That doesn't solve the issues of loneliness.
Point of information.
Yes.
How many people do you think will do what you said? I mean, what I want to say is that not so many people will do that, so that is just too specific. And it is only too limited, so what do you think about that?
How can you say that there are only limited people who do not give attention to the elderly parents? There are no specific statistics that tell that. Now I'll be moving to the opposition's argument. First of all, the premise of our opposition is that everyone is equal and we should not prioritize anything. I'll list 3 examples of welfare that shows this. First of all is health welfare. As I mentioned in the rebuttal, because they live with the family doesn't mean that they're healthier or unhealthier, and so we should not prioritize the welfares to the families who live with elderly parents. Second of all is employment. The families who live with elderly parents are living with their elderly parents because they are willing to provide the money and they have enough money to take care of them. So,
Wait, ma'am.
Yes?
Isn't it true that it's still financially burdening the families living with the elderly parents that otherwise the government had to support?
The opposition side thinks that they're living with the parents because they're willing to provide money. So if it was a burden, they wouldn't live with the family. And third of all is financial welfare. There are many elderly parents who still have money but live with their parents, and if we provide financial aid for them, then we're just wasting the resources that can be used for other people, such as orphanages, as they mentioned in the opening opposition, or the disabled people. And also, putting too much resources on welfare facilities for the aged people can cause problems. For example, we can see in Germany put too much money on the policies for the aged, and their debt for the company has risen too much. So they started a policy called Agenda 2010, and they reduced the policy benefits for the people to 1/10 of the existing resources. And also, there are so many other people who need help, like these orphans, and there are orphans. The definition for welfare is a government agency that provides funds to aid people in need. And the people in need are more than just the elderly parents, so the opposition thinks that we should not prioritize welfare to families who live with elderly parents. Thank you.
Okay, that was a member of opposition arguing against the motion, so arguing that government should not prioritize welfare to those living with their parents. According to the speaker, efforts should perhaps be redirected to helping the elderly stay in employment, as opposed to asking their adult children to look after retired elderly parents. Okay, let's see how many of our audience judges agreed with the member of opposition. 23 out of 50. So just under half of our audience judges were in agreement. Okay, moving on to the last speaker of the government bench, the government whip. Please step up to the podium.
Hello, I'm the government whip. It was outstanding experience for me to participate in this debate. Our motion was this house would prioritize welfare to families who live with elderly parents. Before going into summarizing government's stance, we would like to make some of the rebuttals. The opening opposition, where keep saying giving different help in different status is it is the matter of unfairness. But we already rebutted that it is not that kind of thing. But we can solve this problem by making an adequate standard, as the opening team said. The opposition team also said that families could not take care of elderly parents, even though it is a minority. But we think it could be solved by more inspection of the government in families. And this is the matter of morality, not the matter of the effectiveness of this motion. And as humans, life expectancy is increasing. Korea is aging now. So elderly isolation becomes a very serious problem. After retiring, more than 30 years are left. What does they do? To solve this solidarity and kind of illness, as opening team said, it is not the matter of the money, but that is very, very In the status quo, government gives money to elders, but that is very, very indirect way to solve this problem. There are a lot of families who want to do their help to parents, but they can't because of money. We should celebrate the motion to seize a beautiful scene ever and after. These songs summarizes our government team stance. When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when trouble comes my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. Sorry, I'm not that talented. But, ladies and gentlemen, the life of the elderly would be down and weary without our help, especially their family's help. As Korea is now aging, and since this would be about everyone's future one day, the government should help families to go for them and sit a while with them. Give them welfare chances more. Let them carve the word coexistence inside their mind. Do you know the following lyrics? You raise me up. Elderly raises the youngers up, and youngers raises elderlies up too. You raise me up to more than I can be. No, to more than we, the wonderful Koreans, can be. So, that in mind, we beg you to assign a proposition ballot. Thank you for listening.
Okay, that was a very memorable argument from the government whip. I think almost all the lights are on. I noticed that as soon as he finished singing, all the lights turned on. So it was very effective in persuading our audience. So let's see how many lights have been switched on for the government whip, the last speaker of the government bench. Okay, 37 out of 50. All right, that puts the total of the closing government at 66 out of 100. Well done. Okay, and the last speaker. A lot of pressure on you. Maybe some singing from you as well. The opposition whip, please step forward to the podium.
Thank you. So before I start my speech, let me emphasize our basic premise that we constantly suggested again. So our premise was that the people who are supposed to privileged by the welfare, everyone have equal right to be provided welfare. So there is no difference between the elderly parents living families or the orphans or the disabled people or the only elderly people that they have. There's no difference in importance that they have to be provided welfare. And so by that premise, the opposition side emphasized the other kind of people who have to be provided welfare, such as orphans or disabled. However, I want to emphasize that the government side is actually ignoring some basic things later. That they are ignoring the fact that people who live with elderly parents, that was they're willing to live with them, and also not living with the parents does not mean that their love to their parents are less than people who live with their parents. That is that could be just individual situation that can not live with elderly parents, and also they are ignoring the existence of welfare, such as, for example, in Korea, there is basic old age pension system, which already give elderly who are non-productive to
POI, ma'am.
Yes.
If that original system is starting to fail because of the lack of resources that government holds, then don't you think that another policy should be held to solve the problems?
Okay, so we keep emphasizing that there are the government has keep emphasized that there is more burden to parents who there is more burden to families who are living with elderly parents. However, the government side recognize that there is aging society, and that is the reason why it is the urgent problem. However, it seems problematic since everybody gets old. However, it does in the case of orphans and disabled people, not everyone become orphans or the disabled people, which means that we have to actually measure the elderly who are not wealthy, who really need help, and the possibility to get basic pension system is very low, which means that there are quite great amount of elderly who are wealthy to live by themselves. And also, I want to ask government side that the welfare that you are talking about, are you talking about all the welfares that is existing? For example, there are welfare that is provided by civic group or national government or the state. There can be different situation. There can be different situation between states. For example, there is low population of elderly, which means that the elderly problem is not the most urgent problem in that society. However, the government did not give the premise of regarding welfare nor the elderly people. So, and also they ignore the fact that it is the situation that is different, not the importance that is different with the people who are needed. So that is why the opposition side have to take this debate. Thank you.
Okay, that was the opposition whip, the last speaker of the opposition bench and the last speaker of today's debate. So let's see how many lights have been switched on. 15 out of 50. Okay, so just 30%, and the total for the closing opposition is 38 out of 100. All 8 speakers have argued their case for and against the motion. Now, while our 3 adjudicators are making their decision, let's first get the audience response. Audience judges, if you agree with the government bench and think that government should prioritize welfare to those families living with elderly parents, please turn your lights on. But if you agree with the opposition bench, please leave it off. All right, let's look at the tally. 29 for the motion and 21 against. So it looks like the government bench did a better job by a slight margin at persuading our audiences. Now let's get some feedback from our 3 adjudicators. First, author Sungdeok Shilani.
All right, so I'll talk briefly about the closing government. First comment I have to give is, of course, that was very entertaining, particularly from the government whip with the song. I think the good thing about that song, and of course this was an argument that came from the closing government as a whole, was this idea that we need to care about the elderlies in our society, right? So by having this policy, what we're trying to do is encourage the younger people not only to take care of our parents, but to also care about our parents at a more heart-to-heart level. So that was a valid extension that came from you guys after what we had heard from opening government, right?
As we move into talking about closing opposition, we can build on that. You guys had brilliant rebuttals to the whole case coming out of the other bench. You know, this idea that the burden and the diseases that they were going to get, like, why are we giving the money to the families? Why don't we give it to the people who are giving the healthcare? This idea that if employment and age is such a problem, why don't we hire the elderly to continue to work for longer? So these were really, really great ideas and really great arguments that didn't have as much elaboration as it could have had to be really effective. So a little bit more in terms of really explaining why that solves the issue better, why that solves the problem better, and why that would result, therefore, in, you know, that their policy, so linking it back to the fact that their policy would therefore not actually solve the problems that they want to solve at the end of the day.
Firstly, a comment on the singing from our government whip, just because we may end up having people who enjoy that so much that they're going to sing in every single round. A brief word of advice in terms of doing things that seem out of the ordinary is, yes, it brings attention, but does that take away from the central message that you're trying to bring as well? Overall in this debate, the teams that were able to do the best in terms of these 2 prime issues would be the ones going through. Number 1, in terms of justification or fairness. is it justified or is it fair to prioritize the elderly in terms of handing out welfare in finite resource situation? And number two, which is the best policy for dealing with the problem of aging population, coming from the perspective of the three main stakeholders, from the elderly's perspective, from the family member's perspective, and then from the government's perspective. And the teams that did their best to answer these questions in the most persuasive manner will be the two teams going through.
Okay, thank you for your insight. All right, it's finally time for me to announce the top two teams of today's debate, the 6th episode of Intelligence High School Debate. Now, these two teams that I will mention will go on towards the semi-final round of the tournament for a chance to represent Korea in the Northeast Asia Debating Championship. So, the top two teams are Hankuk Academy of Foreign Studies and Gimcheon High School. Congratulations. How do you feel?
I feel happy that I could do this again, and yeah, I enjoyed the debate.
Did you think that you would be placed in the top two?
I didn't know. Like, I didn't think about it.
It was such an honor to be part of the Intelligence Debate program, and I hope we do better when we advance to the semifinals.
All right. Okay, and our memorable team. You sang for us. Did you plan to sing?
It is an honor for me to show my song cracking worldwide.
Right.
And thank for all the participants in this debate. I enjoyed too. Okay.
And?
We are very happy because I have never imagined us going to the semifinals. And the next time we come here, we will come back stronger.
Okay. Can we expect more singing next round?
Okay.
Maybe we'll look forward to it. Okay, and you guys are, I understand, 10th grade? Yeah. So you guys are 1 or 2 years younger than the other 6 speakers, so perhaps you guys were disadvantaged a little bit in terms of experience. How did you feel about today's debate?
This debate gave the motivation to me, and I'm grateful about that.
And you?
I was also so much motivated by several students who are really good at speaking and listening English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for participating. All right. And Seoul Foreign Language High School students, how did you feel about today's debate?
I feel like I could have been less nervous and less shaky, but it was an unforgettable experience for me.
Right.
Actually, I couldn't arrange my information in my head, so actually that connected to not that good speech, but I think I'll try more next time and be better debater.
Regardless of the results, I think all 8 students put up a great fight and put up a very logical and empathetical argument for their case. Intelligence High School Debate is dedicated to all high school students all around the world who want to have their voices heard and do their bit in changing the future. That's all the time we have for today. We have more fierce debates coming up, so please do join us again next week. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye.